Hey, Big Blue Banter listener. Would you like an extra $500? That's a lot of cash. Go to bluewirepods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. This survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and, in turn, help this show. That's bluewirepods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. bluewirepods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always by my co-host Nick Filato. Today, we're turning back the clock here on Big Blue Banter as we turn the page to our Week 7 All-22 offense review. And by turn the clock back, I mean turn the page back to the Jason Garrett, Joe Judge days where, you get 11 possessions and you can't really move the ball on any of them. I tweeted it today, Nick, but I said we are in line for a very, very frustrating film review. The Giants on their 11 possessions were punt, 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 field goal, punt, punt, and there was a halftime mixed in there as well. So, yeah, man, I mean, they punted almost every possession. It was despicable to watch, obviously, for fans. It's sad that we're at this point again. But I wanted to start the show, Nick, with something that both of us have discussed on Twitter today. So it's on the top of our mind after watching the tape, and it's just how in tune. And I'll start with this. You can discuss if it's on. I'm going to start specific, I should say. You can discuss if you're also seeing it on first and second downs. But for me, how in tune defenses are to what Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones are trying to accomplish. And I use those two because I think it really starts with the coach and the play caller and the quarterback on these third down situations. Multiple plays where, I just see these third downs. It's the same shit. It's always to the sticks. And when you're just trying to get that first down every time and your quarterback is just catching the snap, taking his drop, staring his head where he wants to go with the ball, it's going to lead to what we're starting to see a lot more of on tape with the Bengals in this game, which is defensive backs, sometimes from the boundary, coming off and just driving on the football. And do you think at this point this is at what point do we turn the page on? We know Daniel Jones's limitations. At what point do we say it's on the coach for not trying to do anything differently in these situations? I don't know. Where are you at with this?
We're at that point now, and now it's contingent on Brian Daboll to possibly move on to Drew Lock, which he's not doing, according to his media conference today with on Monday. He said, no, Daniel Jones is our quarterback, gives us the best chance to win. Well, you need to develop a curveball or something. You need to develop another pitch because all these defenses know what you're doing. We saw two plays in particular in this game where the Philadelphia Eagles knew exactly what the Giants were doing, and this was something that played out all throughout. But these two plays in particular, I think it was a 2nd and 11, Wan'Dale Robinson quick out route where he ran the out, and then the number one cornerback, the outside cornerback who was carrying Malik Nabers deep, just used his peripheral vision to look inside, saw Wan'Dale Robinson running out, and he just came off Malik Nabers as the safety flowed over the top and nailed Wan'Dale Robinson as he attempted to catch the football. Wan'Dale actually held on to that football, and it went for like a 2 or 3 or 4 yard gain to set up a 3rd and long. And then later on in the game, there was I think 3rd and 6, if I'm not mistaken, and Malik Nabers ran an in-cutting route from the number one wide receiver spot. He ends up getting leverage on his defensive back, goes inside. He's Daniel Jones' first read. Jones goes to fire it. And then the overhang defender who was carrying Theo Johnson came right off Theo Johnson and then undercut Malik Nabers. Everybody knows these quick passing concepts, whether it's the number 2 receiver going out, the number 1 receiver going in, those underneath zone defenders. They are going to drive down on these quick concepts and remove them from Daniel Jones. That's what Philadelphia did.
Yeah, it's funny, Nick. There's just too many. It's not funny. That's the wrong terminology, I guess, at this point, trying to laugh through the pain. But there's the 3rd and 3 play that I was referencing with Wan'Dale Robinson, to short target or Wan'Dale Robinson, the boundary corner comes off, drives on the football. I mean, it goes back to something you said last week and we discussed last week, like on the 2nd and 1, QB sneaks, and on the 2nd and 1 runs against the Bengals. It's like, you have to at some point put on tape that on these 3rd and short situations and 2nd and short situations, you are willing to, pump fake and gas it for a stop and go, or do something different, like run 4 verts and have the quarterback just chuck it past the sticks. Yeah, go ahead.
they ran a bunch of stutter and goes. They
They
tried
did.
to take advantage of Philadelphia driving down on these short passing concepts. They ran 3 by my count. 2 of them were in the first half. It's just there was never really any vertical leverage for Jones to deliver the football, nor was there time for Jones to deliver the football, nor was Jones ever really going to deliver the football because Jones doesn't really look deep. Jones doesn't look deep. His first option is going to be the path of least resistance, which is going to be closer to the line of scrimmage. And when the defense shows, hey, you can have this, and then right as Jones makes that decision, I'm going to throw it, they drive down and they remove that as an option. And that is something that Jones needs to overcome at this point. And I don't think a lot of Giant fans believe he's going to, because what is this, Dan? Year 6 right now? This is who Daniel Jones is as a quarterback. He is somebody who, when it is the play design, he can work well within that play design. But if that first read is removed, if what he thought going into the play is removed, can he adjust? Can he adapt? Can he throw a different type of pass? No, he can't. Everything has to be so. Everything is very rigid with Daniel Jones. Okay. But I was talking with the scout recently, and they went on it and gave me this long, I was texting him, this long, very well thought out and informative breakdown on Daniel Jones' lack of pacing when he's throwing the football and how, and this is something you've brought up forever. We've talked about it on the podcast, but this is a scout coming to me saying like, yeah, this is something that a lot of people are aware with Daniel Jones. When it's outside of the structure, can he do what Joe Burrow does? Can he do what a lot of these quarterbacks do where he could put a different pace on the football? No. Every time he's trying to throw it directly through. It's like a lack of innate quarterbacking skill that Daniel Jones has. He's tall. He's athletic. He is smart. I think he is good in practice when everything is on script. But when it has to go off of script, Daniel Jones is not a good NFL quarterback. And that has been on display for how long now, ladies and gentlemen? A very long time.
For very long. And I think, part of the issue with Daniel Jones is what you said. It's that lack of innate ability to play the position. I just watched Drake May tape, and the amount of innate plays that he made, natural plays that he made, it's painful to watch, really. I know it was the Jaguars, but the guy's dealing with 8 offensive line combinations, receivers who people laughed at when you called somebody Tayshawn Booty or something. Yes, I thought you said Kayshawn, but I think somebody in the comments thought you said Tayshawn. I thought you said Kayshawn.
I know who Tayshawn Booty is, LSU. I studied him in college.
Yeah. Somebody, I guess they probably heard it. You were going fast. It was like the most worked up I've ever seen you on the podcast last night.
I do talk fast. So
I've never seen you get like that animated in an angry way. And just, dealing with nothing. These are all the excuses that people have used for Jones through the years, and yet he's finding a way because part of it is just that he actually throws with anticipation. And, what you mentioned about how Jones, one of the reasons why people are driving down on these throws is because Jones is it looks short. It's what you said. It's that he finds a solution pre-snap, and then that solution, he wants to go to it no matter what. And you could see it with his eyes. And it's why, like, it's not just what you see on tape. I hope all Giants fans can see it when they watch broadcast or our tape reviews, just how often he goes to that first read. But the percentages bear it out. Fantasy points data, he's the league leader in first read targets among all quarterbacks, because that's what he is. And defenses know that.
And earlier in the season, it was a credit to Brian Daboll for scheming.
For finding solutions.
Yeah, exactly. And people are going at Daboll. And look, Daboll deserves a lot of blame. You don't take over play calling, essentially fire your offensive coordinator. Demote is the euphemism we're going to learn here, because he is still being employed and he's still on staff. But that is such a slap in the face of the offensive coordinator. You don't take over those duties and then your offense suck, and it's not a blight on you. Of course it's a blight on Brian Daboll, but Brian Daboll was able to scheme against certain defenses, open receivers, where Malik Nabers was getting open, where Wan'Dale Robinson was getting open. But now it's week 7. We're going into week 8. The season, there's a lot of tape on this offense, this iteration of the Giants offense, and 2 defensive coordinators in a row on 2 subpar defenses have been able to shut down the Giants offense, shut down the quick passing attack that the Giants used earlier in the season, where they could do these 12, 16 play drives, eat up 7 minutes of clock, and then end up getting a field goal, So like, they need to find another changeup, another curveball. They need to design or come up with other options to allow this offense to move, because right now they are shit and it's hard to watch.
And I think it's interesting, Nick, because like that's where it gets into the whole chicken or egg debate as far as who's to blame, the scheme, the coaching and the play calling, or the quarterback, because this coach has decided he's going to stick with this quarterback despite, what you just kind of said, which was we're giving Daboll credit for finding a way to scheme open receivers early in the year. It's been taken away. But essentially what you said there, and what I agree with, is we're giving him credit for finding offense with a very limited player at the quarterback position, somebody who locks onto first reads. And, after the Seattle game, we broke down some plays where he worked through some progressions, Nick, and everyone's like, see, I told you he can do it. All these people who said he can never do it are such a-holes. They're such haters of Jones. And it's like, it's the same argument that we always run into with Jones. It's not that we were ever saying he can't do it occasionally or sparingly. No one's ever saying he's never able to do it. If he wasn't able to ever come off his first read, it would be crazy that he even made it through 1 year of the NFL, let alone 6. He can do it sometimes. The issue is not doing it often enough. The issue is not doing it more than even sparingly. And the issue is leading the NFL in first read targets.
One thing I want to say too, and I don't know if this is deviating from this point, but it's very much linked to the Daniel Jones conversation. Russell Wilson has been a joke for a while. Russell Wilson was riding the bench for a 4-2 team. He had the calf injury. I get that. But Justin Fields was the starter. Mike Tomlin took a risk, I think a calculated risk, but a risk starting Russell Wilson over Justin Fields because it was apparent that Justin Fields was lacking something, even though he was winning football games. They put Russell Wilson in there to start. And do you just see the touch that Russell Wilson uses on some of these deep passes? You just see how he changes the trajectory, how he basically gets some of his receivers open by how he is throwing the football. And he's maximizing his receivers' ability to come down with footballs. When have we ever seen that with Daniel Jones?
We have not. As far as maximizing receivers' chance to catch a football, it's
not even just like a yards after the catch thing. It's also how the ball is coming off of his hands and how it is being received by the wide receiver. It's just basically always on a line. There's never much touch. There's never a lot of pace on the football when Daniel Jones is throwing it. And that's another thing that is holding this offense back. And it's not allowing Brian Daboll to do what he wants to do as a play caller. This is a huge hindrance to this team.
It is. And I want to bring up a really interesting stat. I'm trying to find it right now because it just goes to the point you just made. And it really is great context for that point. So, we've talked a lot on this podcast and it's hard for us to bear it out when we don't have the stats, but this is a really good context that kind of helps us make this point, Nick, about how the reason the Giants are facing such condensed looks and it's so hard to move the offense and there's no time to set up these deep passes and they're driving and everything has a lot to do with the quarterback and not necessarily the running back. Saquon Barkley wasn't leading to stack boxes. It's a point I've made a lot. He wasn't the main benefactor. And I know he did it sometimes. I know there were reasons to stack the box. And I think there's a great stat that shows it. Last night, the percentages of run plays coming versus stack boxes for Najee Harris last night was 5% with Russell Wilson. It was 20% with Justin Fields at quarterback. 5% with Russell Wilson, 20%. The percentage of Najee Harris run attempts that came versus light boxes, 29% with Justin Fields. 52% with Russell Wilson. That's because Russell Wilson took deep shots early, connected on deep shots early, and used all areas of the field and forced defenses to cover all areas of the field. When you don't do that as a quarterback, and that's something the Giants have not done for 6 years with this quarterback, it's impossible almost to run an offense as a head coach. But it is chicken and egg for me, Nick, because while I admit that that's hard to do as a coach, and I look at this like we've got a quarterback who leads the NFL in first read targets. He locks onto targets. He doesn't manipulate pockets well. His drop back, I'd love you to ask the scout about, this is something I've noticed watching so much Jones tape, how slow and clunky his dropbacks are. I mean, this guy takes so long. The play to Nabers where he got open and Jones was forced to flush to his right because, Illuminor lost up the arc. Man, it takes him so long to get to the top of that drop, dude. Watch Jones and then watch any tape of any quarterback, Drake May, who I just watched, or any of these quarterbacks. They are so much quicker and more concise with their just pure drop back, how long it takes him. And then once he comes off of that drop and he's trying to scramble out, it's like a jailbreak play for him. But the point I was trying to make there was, if you consider all the things that we can consider, he's a first read quarterback, really slow in his drop back. Like you said, doesn't have much different options, doesn't throw from any arm angles, throws the same drive ball, doesn't locate his deep passes at all. All these factors, right? Not great at pocket management, not great at pocket manipulation, doesn't keep his eyes down the field when he's scrambling. I mean, once again, we're back to the old Jones where when he's bailing pockets, dude, we're never finding solutions, right? We never hit that open receiver. It is never going well once he rolled to his right.
Don't you disparage the Daniel Bellinger catch.
He did hit Bellinger once, like around the line of scrimmage on a comeback, but we never hit anything past the sticks, right? A 15, 14-yarder that we see a lot of these quarterbacks hitting. And when it comes to that point, that's when it becomes chicken or egg for me, as far as like Brian Daboll saying this guy gives us the best chance to win. He's their starter again. And he even said in his press conference, I thought Daboll did the things that I asked him to do well, whatever that means. Jones, he always uses his bullshit jargon. But it's hard for me to see on tape what Jones does well right now. I'm running out of, like, I guess he's faster to get the ball out than Locke would be and DeVito would be, I guess. But like, here's the other problem. Like, not all the fact that he leads the league in first read targets, it's not that bad, right? Like Drake May's bomb this week. I'm just using an example because I just watched his tape, Nick. That was a first read play. That's down the field 40 yards outside the numbers, but it was his first read. He confirmed the safety who was in a split look, Nick, rotated to the middle of the field close. I watched him, the stripe of his helmet confirm that, May, and then he ripped the outside throw to his left. That's his first read there, but it's down the field. It's different when your first reads are not all 2-yard ADOT passes, average up the targets like Jones's are, 2 to 5 yard average up target. I mean, if you look at Jones's spray chart, not just yesterday, over the course of the season, it's insane, dude. Almost 95% of the passes are within the 10 yards of the line, within 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
And Jones has not been good against zone coverage. Philadelphia ran a ton of zone. They did not run a lot of man coverage. And it just seems like these underneath defenders, it's like the Giants wide receivers are like iron. And these zone defenders around them are just magnets. Right when Jones rears back to throw, all the zone defenders that aren't necessarily in that wide receiver zone just converge on that. It's like they have no respect for the fact that it could be the dig behind.
Right.
It could be the corner behind. No, it's going to be the underneath pass. And basically every time, Dan, it is the underneath pass. Like, it's just the predictability of this offense at this point. And again, chicken and egg, Daboll does have to carry this blame, but he's working with a quarterback that I know he won't say it publicly, but I know that this play caller, this head coach wants another quarterback. We've seen what he's done with other quarterbacks, a la a Josh Allen. And right now it's on him to get the most out of this quarterbacking room. It's on Brian Daboll to get the most out of it, but you're still wildly limited and your ceiling is not high if Daniel Jones is that starter. And then it goes to, is your ceiling higher with a Drew Lock? And it's like, you definitely have a more lively arm, but can Lock run the simple quick game concepts that are so important for this Giants offense, so crucial for this Giants offense to gain 119 yards.
Right. I mean, we just watched a game where a quarterback didn't get 100 yards. It's hard to imagine that he's the best option for this team, to be honest, against a 20th ranked defense. But it might be. I don't. This is where it gets frustrating for me, Nick, because like I agree with you, and I've always held the belief throughout these last few years, like Daboll doesn't really like this dude. He doesn't really believe in this dude. How could he? The tape is so obvious. It's so obvious that he's not even, in my opinion, really an average quarterback. I think it's pretty clear he's a below average quarterback. Like I just asked earlier, I don't know what he does well besides, I guess, run a little bit of quick game okay at times. But again, they didn't provide any competition for him at QB2 this year. Russell Wilson came in. Sierra wanted to live in New York. She wanted to, have her career and all the opportunities up in New York. And they couldn't even guarantee him a fair shot to compete to be the starting quarterback, Russell Wilson. So he left. And he was only going to cost $1.5 million against the cap because the Broncos were paying based on the contract clauses. That was the max he could have accepted while still making the money from the Broncos. So the Giants would only have to allocate $1.5 million in cap space. It was a perfect fit for the Giants standpoint. But they couldn't give him that fair opportunity. So then you start adding up some of the context. They wouldn't give him a fair, they wouldn't bring any competition for Jones, right? They saw Tyrod on tape last year, which to you and to our eyes, it was obvious. Not only were they able to run different concepts with Taylor led the NFL in explosive pass rate. He was 8th in the NFL in clean pocket EPA, while Jones was 42nd and DeVito was 43rd. But they didn't bring back Tyrod Taylor. And I know he left for other team and they didn't have the money, but they didn't allocate the right money to bring him back, let's say. And then again, he goes into this week, Nick, and he says, Jones is our guy. Jones is the best starter. He's the guy. So it's at some point, instead of, I have to turn the page on blaming, on just accepting that he's so handcuffed schematically and think, maybe the situation is Daboll likes this guy.
Daboll could like this guy. I think he definitely liked him after the 2022 season. And not just the harp solely on Jones. Look, Jones is a big reason why this offense has struggled for a long time. But the offensive line also played like shit in this game. And the second and third drive of the game, and you can even argue maybe the first drive, was just ended by poor offensive line play. The second and third specifically by Josh Ezeudu, to the point where on the next drive, when the Giants ended up dropping back passing, they kept Theo Johnson and Chris Manhertz in to the left side of the offense to help out Josh Ezeudu. So Josh Ezeudu, and look, he did not play well. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Giants are going to have a long season if Josh Ezeudu is their starting left tackle for the rest of the year and Daniel Jones is their starting quarterback. It's going to be a very long season, ladies and gentlemen. But after those first two huge mistakes that ended those Giants drives, it wasn't like Ezeudu was the only reason why the offensive line sucked. Like John Michael Schmitz played like shit in this game. I felt Jermaine Illuminor had a bad game, and I'm a big fan of Jermaine Illuminor and everything he offers this offense. Greg Van Roten lost a bunch of times to Jalen Carter. It just felt like the Eagles defensive line had a step on the Giants offensive line for much of the game. And that did not help Daniel Jones whatsoever. How could it? And did you also pick up, Dan? Well, first, what are your thoughts on that? And then I want to talk about a specific instance in this game that just irked me.
Okay, I'm curious about that. My first thoughts on that are I watched last week's Mic'd Up, and I saw what Brandon Graham basically said to the Cleveland offensive line last week. He essentially told them, like, we know what you can do with Watson as your quarterback, and we're going to make this hell. And that's exactly what they essentially did to the Giants. I felt like just such an aggressive game plan, and they won up front with one-on-ones as well. And, Jermaine Illuminor, a little bit of regression lately from him, if we're going to be honest about the situation.
Last 2 games for sure.
The last 2 games, but it's not great. Like, we don't want that. Greg Van Roten, like you said, the big one for me is JMS, though, because JMS is a top 55 draft pick that they can't keep, like Azudu, JMS, and Neal. They can't all be average or worse players. And JMS, I thought, was taking steps forward in the first few weeks. I did a breakdown on Twitter at one point. I really felt like he was getting better, but there's still like issues in his game that I don't know are correctable. Like the play strength issue. I don't know if that's correctable. I see it in the run game all the time with this guy at the point of contact. Like, is he a good mover in space that can get to the second level? Sure. But like, he's not facing Big Ten interior defensive linemen anymore. I knew this could be an issue. He's not that strong of a player, quite honestly, at the NFL level. He was at the collegiate level. He's not at the NFL level. And so there's issues in the run game that we didn't even get to with JMS, let alone what's happening in the pass game.
And the run game, too, was a lot of him up at the second level that were failures. The Giants would have had a more sustained rushing attack, sparingly, because Brian Daboll didn't really run the football at all in the first half for the second consecutive week.
Yeah.
But they would have had a more impactful rushing attack if JMS could sustain a block at the second level. Because there were a lot of inside runs with Singletary and with Tracy, specifically in the third quarter, where JMS got up to second level. It's just him against Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean is like a 5'11" linebacker.
Sure.
And Nakobe Dean was able to shed him every single time, and it was like a 4-yard gain. And what could have been a 4-yard gain might have been turned into an 8-yard gain if JMS could sustain a damn block at the second level. It's easier said than done, but that's what a starting center should win that matchup at least once or twice if he's in that situation 5 times. And he lost it every single time.
And it's a top 55 pick. That's the other thing. It's not like, a lot of these teams are starting centers they get in round 5 or they get in the free agent. It's centers, a position that a lot of teams don't invest in, and they still get decent production out of. The Giants, made that investment, and we got to start to see steps there. That's a big one moving forward. But you're right. The offensive line was a disappointment. That's why it's not all Daniel Jones' fault in this game. But I'm so tired of that. Like we're way past that point with this, but it does lead to the problem. And I want to get to your, I don't want to call it conspiracy theory. I want to get to your thought in a second. I just didn't think of a better word. Your inquiry in a second.
What's up, everybody? It's Jerry Ferrara. I've got a new podcast called Throwbacks with Heisman Trophy winner Matt Leinart, where we will be talking about all things sports, all things pop culture, and all things about our lives. From football locker rooms to Hollywood green rooms, we've got you covered. We're your weekly destination for the games you want to hear about and the stories you won't forget. Listen to Throwbacks on Apple Podcasts or Spotify with new episodes every Thursday.
What's up, Big Blue Banter listeners? I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It has to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get wireless for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them on it. Turns out, it really is that easy to get wireless for $15 a month. And all of Mint Mobile's plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/BBB. That's mintmobile.com/BBB. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/BBB. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Hey everyone, this episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. Every man knows the unbeatable feeling of a fresh barbershop shave. Now, what if I told you that you no longer have to wait weeks or even months between appointments to experience it? Introducing Manscaped's newest innovation, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. the game-changing tool that brings the luxury of professional shave right into your home. Whether you're after that daily silky smooth finish or prefer to maintain a rugged 5 o'clock shadow, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver is your go-to for precision and style every time. Head over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using code BIGBLUE for 20% off. Gentlemen, this has changed the grooming game for me, and I highly recommend it for you. Get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGBLUE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code BIGBLUE at manscaped.com. Hey, Giants fans, we've teamed up with Buck Foston to give away exclusive free apparel from hats to premium sweatshirts and hoodies. It's easy to enter. Just follow them on Instagram @_Buck Foston or sign up for the newsletter at buckfoston.com. Next, DM them our 20% discount code BLUE20 on Instagram or through their website's chatbot, and you're entered in the giveaway drawing. You can participate every week and boost your chances by tagging friends and liking posts. 3 winners are picked at random each week. It's simple, free, and a great way to score apparel from Buck Foston. You must reside in the United States to enter. Terms and conditions apply. Look, we all wear underwear every single day, and we all have complaints. They ride up, they're not comfortable, they don't fit correctly. I shared these complaints until I started wearing Skims. When I tried Skims stretch boxer briefs, I felt like I finally found that missing link. They gave me all the movement I needed for the workout. They were comfortable while I was sitting here podcasting and watching all of this New York Giants film. Everything from the texture to the fit worked for me, and it will work for you too. It is a great product, and I highly recommend it. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you after you place your order. Select podcast in the survey and select our show, Big Blue Banter, in the drop-down menu that follows.
And given that regression from the offensive line, Nick, I am getting a bit concerned that every game may start to look like this, to the point where they can't really run deeper concepts because they don't have time to draw them up. And at the same time, the quick game is all going to get driven on, and the run game is going to be non-existent because their lanes aren't there, and the teams know to just crash aggressively. I don't know how to get out of this. I'm worried we're entering another Garrett Judge phase of offense.
And I also don't appreciate or like how the Giants seem to be a little bit predictable when they go under center. It's like, oh, it's a play action shot.
And you said that last week, dude, and it happened again.
It did. Now, on the third drive, I think they went under center for the first time, and they ran the ball with 12 personnel, and Jalen Carter just split a double team. It was Jack Nicholson. I made this reference a bunch. Jack Nicholson and the Giants just split the double team, threw one of the offensive linemen down on the ground, and it was just right in the face of Tyrone Tracy Jr. And it's like, oh, and I think Tracy Jr. was able to pick up a couple yards, but they haven't run the football consistently at all from under center. A lot of their shit is out of shotgun. Sometimes they'll try some RPOs. They open the game with an empty formation, throw to Malik Nabers, which is fine. They wanted to run empty. That's cool. They connect with Malik Nabers. But then after that, they just stall out, and they can't complete a pass, and they can't block up front. And once Daniel Jones takes a bunch of hits, Dan, I just think it's over for him. And this is something that we've said and we stated throughout the years. And he has shown, he's a tough player. Right? Daniel Jones is tough. He can get his ass kicked and get right back up. But recently, it seems like he's getting hit, and then that throws off his understanding and his comprehension on how to find answers against what the defense is doing. And it happened in this game because he was hit early, and he was hit often because of Josh Azudu on that second and that third drive, and even before that. And he had no answers after those drives. And we really didn't have answers during those drives, but it just seemed like the Eagles weren't doing anything too crazy. They were just playing a lot of cover 3 and cover 6. Right. It really was not like they were doing that much crazy other than removing underneath options, as Dan and I pointed out, and as we'll go over here in the film soon.
And that goes back to just something you mentioned earlier that I think we've harped on and done a good job on the podcast. It's a little bit more advanced, but I would say it's true. Really goes back to his rookie season. Jones is not good against zone. He compiled almost all of his stats against man. The Jets and Lions from that 2019 season ran a heavy man coverage scheme, if you remember back to both of those defenses. And those were almost all stats came from, except for the Washington game where he threw 5 TDs against a team that quit on their head coach. And, everybody brings up 2019 because I saw something today where I posted Drake May spray shot and this is just Daniel. Somebody's like, this is just Daniel Jones for 2019. I'm like, what 2019 were you watching? I had to literally find the game log from career game log and post it from 2019. Besides those first 3 games, they were like 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 50%, 149 yards, 100. Like, he got dominated by almost every team that year. We can't misremember this 2019 season the way we have, but who even cares at this point, dude? It's so like meaningless to the grand scheme of things. It's just frustrating. But yeah, man, I'm just a little worried about rest of season film. I'm very worried we're going to not be able to generate offense with this O-line, and it just gets really scary because you're right. He can't find any solutions, Daniel Jones, outside of structure.
At the end of the 5th drive, and this is what I was alluding to a little bit before, there was a 3rd and 11, and Bryce Huff ended up getting a sack. The Giants ran a spacing concept. Spacing's concept, it was synonymous with Jason Garrett. You're basically just running a bunch of curls to the sticks, and the goal of this, and it seems very unoriginal, but the goal of this is to defeat zone coverage by creating horizontal stretches towards the sidelines and then find a curl between the curl flat defender in the middle hook zone. So the Giants ran that on 3rd and 11, and it ended up being a sack. And one of the reasons it was a sack was because Theo Johnson was there to help Josh Ezeudu. He didn't have to do anything because the defender slanted inside towards Ezeudu, but it held up Theo Johnson running towards the sideline to expand the curl flat defender. And this is the play, and I think we'll go over it here in a little bit, where Jones is holding on to the football, and he's just looking at Darius Slayton, but Cooper DeJean is just staying basically on the outside shade of where Darius Slayton is, and he's never expanding until Theo Johnson lately gets out towards the sideline. So Theo Johnson was too late on getting out towards the sideline. But the reason why I bring this up ends up being a sack. The next drive, on the start of the 6th drive for the Giants came out with a more condensed formation and ran the same exact play from a different formation with Wan'Dale Robinson as the motioning defender to expand the curl flat. The Giants went right back to that. They're saying, we can't do anything against this zone coverage. Let's run another spacing concept. It's simple. It's easy. All it does is Daniel Jones takes the football, he reads the defender, and then he fires. But on that next play, 1st and 10, it was a sack again. The Giants get sacked again because Wan'Dale Robinson ran to the flat, pre-snap motion. We've seen this play a bunch of times. Nobody picks up Wan'Dale Robinson. It's a 1st and 10 play. But Cooper DeJean stays right on the hip of Darius Slayton, gains depth, and the Eagles end up having a mathematical advantage, a 3-over-2, because it was a 2-receiver side where Wan'Dale Robinson was running underneath, creating him as a fast 3. It's a 2-receiver side. The Eagles just didn't expand with Wan'Dale Robinson, and they stayed 3-over-2 with Malik Nabers and Darius Slayton as the outside curl. And Jones just locked on to those two guys the entire time through his drop back until he ends up stepping up and trying to find room and get sacked. He had time to get the football to Wan'Dale Robinson. Look, we want him to challenge things deep, but when it's 1st and 10 and that the coaching staff saw this on tape on the previous drive and said, we're going right back to it. Like, he had to know, if nobody's expanding with Wan'Dale Robinson, just get the football to Wan'Dale Robinson and allow him to pick up a couple yards and stay on script. But on this one, he literally just dropped back, took a couple steps, and looked the entire time at Darius Slayton and Malik Nabers, and none of those Eagles defenders expanded the curl flat to get Wan'Dale Robinson. It's little things like that that just piss me off because there's an answer right there. And I know he knows there's an answer, but he stays locked on way too long. And we'll go over that play here in a little bit so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. But those are the things that make me want to rip my hair out, dude. Because it's there. Yeah. You got to come off it when it is not there. And you got to make the defense pay for what they're giving you. Make them pay. Make them alter their game plan a little bit. You can't play right into what they're doing. You just cannot do that.
Right. And that's what he does as a quarterback more often than not. And I think it's a great point where what makes you so frustrated by it, and I can understand your frustration, is that he's supposed to be able to see what you were saying with those DBs, with Cooper DeJean, and understand based on their leverage and the fact that they're not expanding, that you have that in the flat. But he seems to miss this a lot. On the 4th down last week against the Bengals, he missed that flat open receiver. I believe it was Slayton. This is just not something he processes well. He is figuring out what he wants before the snap, finding that it's his first read, and that's where his eyes lock. And he's a lock quarterback. And I mean, we've seen this for a while. The Giants have seemingly not seen this, I guess, which is why we're here, I guess, in year 6. I don't really know. I just have no understanding of why this guy is still here. Before we get into the plays, I have one point I wanted to make that's off the Jones and off the everything. The Giants did have an interesting split. I'm sure you checked this out with Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary in Singletary's first game back. Tracy operated as the lead back. Tracy got most of the snaps. Do you think this is something we'll see moving forward, or was it kind of just an easing Singletary back into it? I want to get your take on that.
I think we'll see this moving forward. I think Tyrone Tracy Jr. has done a lot, and he's not perfect. I don't know if it's going to be I think in a neutral game script, you'll see more Devin Singletary, and it was a little bit of an easing, but Tyrone Tracy Jr. is not going away. And why would he at this point? You got to see what this kid can do. And he could do a lot, man. He really can. He's a fun player. I think Singletary is a fun and good football player too. I think it's a good problem for the New York Giants to have. To me, it's not I've seen some people suggest like or act as if Devin Singletary is just like some like old plotter at this point, and you just got to get him off the field. I don't think that's it at all. Like Devin Singletary, before he went down with the injury, was leading the league in missed tackles forced. It was him and Jordan Mason up until like week 4 or week 5, and then he ends up missing games. So I do believe in his skill set, but you can't not give more snaps to Tyrone Tracy Jr. I just wish he had more opportunity in this game to do something with it. He really
any space to work with,
any space.
Nobody's going to give him any space because nobody gives the Giants offense any space. It's every defender around the line of scrimmage with eyes on the quarterback. How many times are we watching these corners, dude? It's disrespectful leverage. It's just, we know what it is. Let's get into some play breakdowns.
No, I know. I want to bring up another thing though. Like, one of what we talked about with Sean heading into this game was how the Giants would be able to run the football, run duo in 11 personnel to force the nickel defender, Cooper DeJean, to fit the backside C gap. That's what we thought we were going to see. We didn't see that until halftime, until the second half. That's when the Giants went back and said, let's try to establish a run. We're down 14-3. Why not try that a little bit early? I just feel like every time the Giants run some duo with Chris Manhertz out there, they have some success, but they're just so hesitant to turn to that. They want to start shotgun throwing all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. There's been 2 weeks in a row of that.
It's 2 weeks in a row. And I'll say this too, man. Look, there were more loaded boxes in this game, but it wasn't as loaded as I expected.
No, yeah.
There were 2 high shells where I was like, they're kind of inviting the run right now. And the Giants would go and they would throw the football. They would throw the football, and they were trying to throw to like establish a run by throwing, basically.
Yes. That's been the story of the season, basically. Use the passing game as an extension of the run game.
I know, but sometimes you just gotta.
I know you should just run. At this point, they should just, like, if the defense is giving them the first 6 possessions or 5, it was fewer because the Barkley had that big run that they gave him those stops early. Run the ball, just freaking run the ball. Like you said, just like commit to it. It doesn't look good. The looks aren't going to be great. We're never getting good looks at this point with this quarterback from the run game, but like at least just try it. It's better than letting this guy pass and lock onto the first read. There's nowhere to go there. It seems like,
look, Daniel Jones was at his best, Dan, when the Giants could run the football and work the play action. We have to get back to that at this point. And that says a lot about the ceiling of this offense, but that shouldn't be a surprise to any Giant fan.
No.
That the ceiling of this offense is capped, because obviously it is. But if you want to compete and you want to win football games, you're going to have to run the freaking ball somehow. You can't put it all on Daniel Jones's shoulders. It's not going to work.
It's very interesting. And that goes to the whole idea of, like, at this point, is Brian Daboll calling the best offense for the teams that he has, or is he calling his offense or for the players he has and hoping that Daniel Jones can operate within his offense? Because I think it's pretty clear Daniel Jones cannot operate within his offense. Daniel Jones needs an offense very tailored and catered to who he is as a quarterback and what little he offers as a quarterback. And I think, that sounds harsh, but it's a reality of the situation. It's borne out on tape, it's borne out on broadcast, and it's borne out by the stats and the advanced stats and the major, the raw stats and the advanced stats. He is one of the most limited quarterbacks starting in the NFL at this point. He's not the worst in the NFL, but he's one of the most limited for sure.
Deshaun Watson just got hurt.
And now there's still like Levis and stuff, but like, and I guess like, what's the guy playing for Miami? Rattler, the guy playing for Miami.
Kim Boyle.
Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Or some might start to argue that Bo Nix is beginning to maybe offer more. It's crazy.
Bo Nix is leading a winning team right now.
I know, but it's
now their defense is insane.
They've had such an easy schedule. That is trending to be either they fall off or they screw themselves like the 2022 Giants, and they fool's gold themselves into building around Bo Nix, which, I mean, they're going to have to anyway. They just drafted him.
Exactly. He's in the first year of his contract. It's not like he just had his 5th year option.
I'll make my prediction right now on air. That's not going to go well for the Broncos. And you could come back to me and cold takes me, anyone who wants to. I promise you, I am not going to regret the Giants passing on Bo Nix.
One more conversation before we get into the plays. Didn't see a lot of them, but Drew Lock. The ball very visibly flies out of his hand. It's something that we have not seen from Daniel Jones. Now, I still think he's a little indecisive back there. He can lock on, just going back through his tape that I watched. He can lock on, no pun intended, to the first read as well. I don't think he understands his offense nearly as comprehensively as Daniel Jones does, although that's not really translating to the football field at the moment. But what are your thoughts on Drew Lock being the starting quarterback over Daniel Jones, even though we know that's not going to happen according to Daboll?
At least not this week. It's not
going to happen. Not this week.
Yeah. Well, it's an inevitability that Jones will be benched at some point. Today, Adam Schefter tweeted something that a repeat of something he tweeted earlier this season, which was saying essentially earlier season, Daniel Jones has the injury clause. The Giants at some point are going to consider it. And then, today he essentially tweeted there's some talks about it already happening, or someone tweeted that in addition to what Schefter tweeted. I'm sure it's right. We know it's not a surprise. It's already being talked about behind the scenes. At some point, Jones will be benched. The question is when. Now, as far as Locke goes, my issues also with him, dude, are I also think he just has I know Jones has these issues, but ball placement is going to be an issue when we watch Locke too. Just from watching the tape in today's game, there were some really wild off target throws from him too.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, well, Locke isn't necessarily known much for his accuracy. It's not that he's an inaccurate quarterback, but I don't think people say, oh, he's pinpoint. But the guy has received 0 first-team reps, and he's throwing the players. He's just insert into a game cold because his starting quarterback couldn't do anything.
I hope that's it. Yeah.
So if he earns a full week of practice, I would have more faith, and I'm ready for that at this point.
Oh, I'm beyond ready for that. I said it yesterday, and I stand by it. There's no point to play Daniel Jones for the rest of the season because the whole point before was he gives you the best chance to win, but there's not much proof of that at this point that he does. And if it is, it's a slight edge. That's not much. And also, the main thing for me is I don't think he helps the development of the receivers because he limits the passing opportunities in the deep path. He limits their targets. He limits everything. He's a very limiting quarterback, not just for the offense, but for the wide receiver development.
I guess they just don't want to maybe throw Locke in against
Pittsburgh. I think that's what it is, honestly.
In prime time. So you give Daniel Jones one more chance to reclaim his job.
To go from 1 I don't think it's 2 and 14 in prime time, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what
this is so sick.
I think if it's a meltdown next week, which it very well could be, John Mara will give the little head nod, the okay, and Drew Lock will be the starting quarterback.
The issue being, Nick, I get it. And it is smart if you're trying to win. I don't know if you're trying to just not kill Locke to not put him out just yet until you get to what's after that, Washington, I think, and then Carolina maybe after that, which are decent options for a quarterback. But the other side of this, which is scary, is this is TJ Watt. This is a great defense. They look awesome, and it would be the most Giants thing ever, Nick, for Daniel Jones' final start with the Giants against this tough defense on the road. He gets that season-ending injury where, and I'm not wishing this, knock on wood, I never would wish injury on a player, especially not Jones. He's had such bad luck with that, and especially because it would be horrific for us as fans. But, this just feels so Giants that they put him back out there for this one last time, and that happens. And he can't pass the March physical, and now the whole 2025 season is shot because you're allocating $49.5 million to this freaking albatross of a quarterback, and you can't even play him because he's hurt. And who would even want to play him once he comes back? This guy is so bad at the position. It's bad. It's a bad place that they're in, Nick. But I had one more thing I forgot, unrelated to Jones. We touched on the running back situation. It was an observation about somebody, something else, but we'll come back to it as we work through plays.
Let's get to some plays, and we'll start here, Dan, with a solid play by the Giants. Mm-hmm. Another little screen where they get it to Eric Gray, and Eric Gray is able to get about 7 yards here. I just like the split back formation. You have a tight end in there, and it's a fake screen. As you see, they're going to go like they're throwing at Theo Johnson. The defense reacts, and then Eric Gray just leaks out of the backside. And now you have 2 defenders on that side with 2 blockers in space. Honestly, I think the Giants should have probably gotten more on this. And that's not necessarily me chastising Eric Gray. Although if Eric Gray cuts this back to the inside, he might have probably picked up a first down. Either way, I thought it was a creative little design early in the game that created some offense for the Giants, which is something that is hard to come by, as we all know.
And I completely agree. I think if the block was sustained on the outside, I'm not sure who that block was. It was Illuminor. If he could have done it's a tough block to make. Obviously, I'm not chastising him, but if he can get that guy,
Van Roten.
Oh, sorry, Van Roten, not Illuminor. Yeah. If he can get that guy pinned down on contact, that's where I think the yardage comes from. But a creative cutback would have been cool from Gray because he has so much space in the middle there. I don't know if he's doing that.
Yeah, neither do I. And I understand, I guess, why he took it outside. That brings us to a 3rd and 3. We're going to have another split back type of situation, only they're going to use orbit to the opposite side of where they're targeting. And this is an incomplete pass to Wan'Dale Robinson. The Giants trying to get Wan'Dale Robinson from the backfield to the flat. Eagles did not blitz a lot in this game. Now we're going to see a simulated pressure. It's something they ran effectively. And simulated pressure means Nakobe Dean is going to come up to the line of scrimmage right before the snap. He's going to blitz, and then you're going to have the edge at the top of the screen drop off, creating a 4-man pass rush that was not necessarily tipped off. You can see Dean gets a little bit eager, but nobody picks up Nakobe Dean. And Jones gets hit, and he overthrows Wan'Dale Robinson. And you can also see how the cornerback is driving down on that. They're dialed in. This is man coverage, it looks like, to that side of the field. It just goes incomplete. Giants have to punt the football.
Yeah, you could see just another first read, get the ball out fast, do your first read, what you thought would be a solution. DBs all around the play. No interest from them in, defending the deep half.
And I just love this play design, too, by Vic Fangio, because you put this 2-eye shade on the inside shoulder of Greg Van Roten. That's going to force Van Roten to engage. Then you release him towards John Michael Schmitz. Jermaine Illuminor has to kick out to handle the tackle. Now the B gap is wide open. Jones is put into a very precarious situation. He doesn't put the football where it needs to be. Giants wanted Malik Nabers, I guess, to run this slant and create a pick, allowing Wan'Dale Robinson to catch this football and run up the sidelines. You get it. Nabers doesn't really make contact either, so it might have been first down if it was on target, but Wan'Dale Robinson would have been tackled right away. Now we're going to get into a 2nd and 11 when we're done here. 9:54 left in the first quarter. And this is just a quick little out route to Wan'Dale Robinson. This is what teams show all the time to the field side against the New York Giants. Dan and I have been talking about this from 2022, the first year Brian Daboll came in. He loves these quick little passing concepts. You're going to get inside leverage from the overhang, as you can see at the top of the screen. Inside leverage. So it's telling Daniel Jones, you have Wan'Dale Robinson on a quick little out, quick little spot, quick little, whatever the hell you want to call it. But that cornerback who's initially inside leverage of the number 1 receiver, he's going to use his peripheral vision to look inside, as you see right here, and come right off and nail Wan'Dale Robinson for just a small gain. And these are dangerous throws that we've seen the Giants throw interceptions on in the past because they're sitting on a lot of these quick concepts. These are the types of plays we're talking about. You could see how Darius Slayton ends up coming open here, and that safety is going to aggressively flow over top. I'm not saying Jones should have targeted that. That safety is well outside the hash. Would have been a difficult throw. It's just the nature of how defenses view the Giants offense and how they know all this quick stuff is what the Giants are going to do. So we're going to have adjacent zone defenders coming off their assignments to undercut and punish Giant receivers at the catch point.
Yeah, you just got to look at the defensive leverage to the field side, and this is how teams are playing the Giants' number 2 receivers. And I love how you talked about, watching that safety flow over the top. You can just see that teams are locked into what the Giants are doing, man.
It's stop quick game, man. It's stop quick game. And you can see, man, this is one thing I wish too, that Jones looked more towards Malik Nabers when he was either the outside receiver in a 2x2 set or the lone receiver in a 3x1 set, because you're not getting a lot of coverage flowing towards Malik Nabers. And he's just him and Kenyon Mitchell. I think that's Kenyon Mitchell. Dude. And Kenyon Mitchell's a good player.
That's bottom of the screen, by the way, what Nick is referring to, if you're watching. But
that there were a lot of but either way, yeah.
I'll say this: there were multiple scenarios like this where Nabers won his route, and if the quarterback had locked onto the right guy, it actually would have been fine that he locked onto one guy. Like, just lock onto Malik. I feel like he was doing it in the preseason, Jones, and he was doing it in the beginning of the season more often. And he got away from it in this game, locking onto Malik. If you're going to lock onto anybody, stop trying to find this easy, quick game solution to the number. It looks so good pre-snap. It's never as good as it looks because the defense is in zone and they're driving down and they're focused on this. So it looks good pre-snap. Stop getting fooled, Jones. Figure it out. And one way to figure it out is just throwing the one-on-one to Malik Nabers when you get it.
Yeah, this one, because the safety, look, man, he's just outside that hash, but he's nowhere near the numbers. And again, this is the boundary side, so there's not as much space. But you have that one-on-one matchup. But this is the way defenses are able to bait Giant offenses. Because if you look pre-snap, a lot of this is tied pre-snap to post-snap. This is a favorable look to the number 2. That's what it is. It's a favorable look to the number 2. Jones confirms that. That apex, that overhang defender does not expand outward. And then that other cornerback, the number 1 cornerback to the field side, he turns his hips and acts as if he's going to get cleared out by Darius Slayton, but he's doing that deliberately. He's doing that on purpose. And this is what defenses do against the Giants offense, to give the illusion that you're going to have this guy open on the quick game, on this quick passing concept. But guess what? He's not actually open because the adjacent defender is coming down to drive right through the catch point once the ball's released.
It's been just way too easy to fool the Giants with pre to post snap looks.
Yeah, that's true. Now here we're going to have a 3rd and 6. This is the sack. You're going to watch, man. The Giants are going to motion Wan'Dale Robinson inward. You're going to have stutters and goes, man. You're going to have double moves. Watch Malik Nabers and Darius Slayton both They both change up their, well, not really as much Darius Slayton, but Malik Nabers, watch him at the top of the screen. He's going to run, and then he's going to act like he's going to stop, sink his hips, and then explode up against Kenyon Mitchell, and then come back. Kenyon Mitchell does a very good job staying on top of this, but in doing so, Malik Nabers comes open. But Daniel Jones has no time to get rid of the football. And this I'm not going to blame on Daniel Jones. When you're running these longer patterns like this, you're going to need some time. And Josh Ezeudu just gets flat out beat by Josh Sweat. And Daniel Bellinger holds up Josh Sweat for like a second on this play. So it was just a really bad loss by Ezeudu.
Yep. And that's a great example by you. Ezeudu blows this play up, and it's hard to blame the quarterback on something like this.
No, and it's 3rd and 6, man. And you have a 4-eye shade. And Ezeudu does a good job stabbing that 4-eye shade with his inside hand, passing him off to Runyon. See how he does that? And now he frames Josh Sweat well. And Daniel Bellinger does an excellent job passing Josh Sweat right to Josh Ezeudu, to the point where Josh Ezeudu is perfectly mirrored against Josh Sweat. But that just violent, and I love that. I wish I saw that from a New York. That violent chop that Josh Sweat employs on the outside shoulder of Josh Ezeudu just freezes Ezeudu. And Ezeudu, he does this too, man. He provides these easier paths into the pocket way too often with that outside foot. His outside, and I wish somebody a little bit more knowledgeable than me when it comes to offensive line could explain exactly why he does this so frequently and why it hasn't been corrected, because this might not even be the best representation of what I'm talking about. But if you watch the outside foot of Ezeudu, he gains depth. And then once he gets hit like that, he takes that step forward, and now you have this clear path right through his outside shoulder, right into Daniel Jones. I just feel that soft edge is always there for these pass rushers against Josh Ezeudu. And this is something I noticed back when he was playing tackle at UNC, when they would you'd be like, oh, you're a guard, never mind, you're a tackle, and they would just move him over. He has foot quickness, but he never gains the proper or necessary depth to actually cut the ankle off.
It's a great evaluation of it, and it's just unfortunate for the Giants.
And now we're going to have the next 3rd down, 3rd and 3 with 6:06 left. Jones gets sacked. Then you get coverage on Malik Nabers. This is what we were talking about. We just saw something similar with Wan'Dale Robinson on out. Now you're going to have an in route to Malik Nabers, and watch the overhang defender at the bottom of the screen. This is the boundary. He's going to make contact with Theo Johnson, and he's just going to pass Theo Johnson off, come right off Theo Johnson, pass him to the safety, and just undercut Malik Nabers. Malik Nabers.
How often do we see that, by the way?
This is a popular guy, Malik Nabers. How often do we see this?
No, do we see, so you're talking about how this defender is passing off Theo Johnson, but there's so much space. There's no time for the quarterback here.
There's no time.
Yeah. There's no time, but it's just like, there's no point too, because there's always this kind of space and these secondary options to Theo or whoever it may be. And the ball's never really coming out there. It's always to that underneath solution.
Yeah, these aren't the plays that we're blaming. These aren't the plays I'm blaming Jones for.
No, I'm not blaming Jones for this either.
Yeah,
it's just, it is a microcosm though of like why the DB is passing him off, because he knows he can.
Yes, 100%. It is how the defense is playing. And I would like to think Jones could stand in here and then find Theo Johnson. Although I got to say, man, like again, I just feel like
Ezeudu got crushed on this.
Oh, Ezeudu was terrible on these two. These are the 2 plays that we were talking about at the top of the show that Josh Ezeudu just ended the Giants' drive. Yep. But Theo Johnson just looks slow out there, man. He does not look like a good athlete out there at all. And it's little plays like this, man. It's little plays like him just running it out, and then he loses his balance, then he recollects. And that one's not super bad. And I think this would have been a completion if Jones had the damn time. But the first read is absolutely eliminated. And Theo Johnson had so much space, but it didn't matter because there's no blocking for Daniel Jones to actually deliver the football. And the only thing that you can maybe point at Jones and say, well, if you look to the field side, you had Tyrone Tracy Jr. in the flat wide open because no one ended up following him. But he was going to his first read. So you can't really knock him necessarily for that, can you?
No, these 3rd and short situations, it's going to be first read every time. And, the first read wasn't open on this because, like you said, the Eagles are tuned into what's happening. Defenders passing off Theo and just driving a second pair of eyes on Nabers. Jones can't then pull the trigger, and the protection breaks down because Ezeudu gets beat. It's a total mess.
You should have saw the next time the Giants passed the football. I brought this up earlier. Three guys on the edge rusher to help. Wow. Two guys to help Josh Ezeudu. So
Ezeudu was a bad for Ezeudu. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, same here. He was
I don't understand their plan with Ezeudu. Like it's almost like odd to me, Nick. It's like they never told us when they drafted him that they thought he was like a tackle/guard. So at some point they decided, let's make him a tackle. And I don't really understand what led them to that point.
Evan Neal sucking.
Maybe
they just drafted Evan Neal the day prior, right? and they had Andrew Thomas. So they wanted him to work out as a guard because their guards at the time were Dan Schneier and Mark Lewinsky. They didn't have anybody on the inside. And I think he could be a good guard, but I don't trust his anchor, even in this game. Like, he's got puts on ice skates, and he's sometimes able to hold up, but he's like way back.
An important thing to think about, Nick. Like, we watched his tape at UNC, and we watched some of his tape in year one. There were times that we talked about his flashes, Nick. We said there are times where he's explosive off the snap, where you could see his power in the run game. But the reality of the situation is, Nick, the Giants kind of drafted him out of nowhere in where they drafted him, right? Like, he wasn't projected to go anywhere near that range. It was a we know more than you kind of pick, no matter how you slice it. And if you look at the evaluations of people in the industry, that not like the big boards or like the Kuipers, I'm talking about the people we trust, Nick, for an analysis, and the people that we believe are watching the tape and grinding these college offensive linemen, he was considered a massive reach pick by Joe Schoen in that spot. Yeah. So it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Because at some point you should criticize a GM if he just goes out of his way to take a guy projected in round 5 or 6 because we know more than you type of thing. And then it turns out to look like this. Right?
I mean, yeah, we've kind of discussed this for over a year now about criticizing the Josh Azudu, the Cordell Flott picks. I think there's also context.
But I just think it's different with the Josh Azudu versus the Neal in that sense.
Okay. How so?
Because I don't think Neal was overdrafted by what we
of course. Yeah. No doubt.
So it's a little more frustrating to me when you just go out of your way to kind of make the pick that you just believe in, and it's kind of the I know more than you pick.
I don't know if it was an I know more than you type of pick, though. Again, they were working with Dave Gettleman's scouting department at that time. I don't know
why did no one else have him projected to go anywhere near that pick.
I mean, I don't really know exactly where other people had him projected. I think Brandon Thorne liked Josh Azudu. I don't think he believed he was a top 80 pick.
I don't think.
I want to say Bobby Johnson loved Josh Azudu. That factors. I think there's a lot of factors.
I think that's what led us to John Michael Schmitz, to be honest with you. I think John Michael Schmitz is almost 100% because Bobby Johnson liked meeting with him. It was like, this guy could call out all the protections, and our shit quarterback can't do it, so we need that. It's just so frustrating.
The relationship between the UNC staff and Joe Schoen, I think, had something to do with. I think there's a lot of factors into why those guys were picks. At the end of the day, it looks like a bust for a third round type of bust. I think they liked his feet and they liked his developmental traits, but he hasn't taken to that. The injuries haven't helped whatsoever. I don't think he's strong enough to be a guard. I don't think he is confident enough or nuanced enough to play tackle. And I think it's going to hold this offense back. And again, you already have this capped ceiling with Daniel Jones. So losing Andrew Thomas, absolute nightmare for this team.
Yeah, I guess for me, it just relates back to my losing of faith in the regime. There's just too many of these types of moments, like Bobby Johnson, like in John Michael Schmitz, because he can call out protections. Like, you got to have confidence in your quarterback to run that show, and that can't be a driving factor. I'm not saying it was. We'll never know. He had good tape as well, Nick, and a lot of people had him projected in that range. But it's like Azudu. It's just a lot of these picks are just not working out on the offensive line at all. And it's not like you can blame it all on the offensive line coach because they've moved to a different offensive line coach, right? It's a lot of the stuff that you see on tape and the things you just mentioned with Azudu, those almost feel uncorrectable, to be completely honest with you.
No, you're right. They didn't take the development. Like I'm a little bit more forgiving with the 2022 draft class, with all things considered. Okay. These last few, not as much. Now the 2023 draft class, what the hell's going on with Jalen Hyatt? Like, what the hell's going on with Hyatt at all? I think you had some hits in that 2022 draft class, but not the players that you want to hit. Those premium picks, the third round picks, and then obviously the first round. There's an argument that they're both busts. Now, Kayvon is still a valuable player. I think Kayvon is still an average player at worst, but is he a plus? I think he could be, but he's not a top 5 pick. Absolutely not. And Evan Neal is an absolute bust. So the 2022 draft, that's horrible. And it is a blight on Joe Schoen. I'm not saying that it is not, but I think there were a lot of circumstances that might have led to some picks later where they were going with people who it could be viewed as we know better, but also they didn't trust a lot of the scouting staff since it was Dave Gettleman's. Like, that is a factor from a human element into
and
all
I am
this.
willing to,
regardless of the fact.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, regardless of the fact, like, Joe Schoen has to do a better job at this point. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, that seat is getting hot. Like, his ass is getting warm. Like, if he has ass hair, that shit's starting to get cinched at this point.
And I guess my point, Nick, is I am willing to accept all of that, and I realize, and I'm willing to give him that, I guess, what do you want to call it, an excuse or whatever, the context of he's working with Gettleman scouts, it's tough. But at the same time, Nick, I know that the Giants were just simply not in a position where they could afford to miss a draft class, no matter what the circumstances were from that missing the draft class. They weren't really in position to miss a Zudu like that, to miss Neal like that. It just fought. And it just like they were coming off a really bad tenure with Gettleman where the cupboard was bare. I mean, he missed almost every pick but Lawrence, essentially, and Andrew Thomas. And so you needed to not have that. And I know the circumstances were tough, but it's part of why the Giants are what they are right now.
Absolutely is. Back to the tape. This is a 1st and 10 with 10 seconds left in quarter one, under center, opening play action shot. And we're going to see more stuttering go. And I think this is just a great route by Darius Slayton. He uses that stutter, sees that the defensive back does not necessarily bite, stays high and over the top and slightly to the inside. So he runs a comeback, catches the football. Could be Daniel Jones's best throw of the game. And it's nothing too crazy at all, but he has time to throw it. Like the stuttering goes, like the comeback. I'm wondering if a lot of that is a choice type of route. If the DB's bit, they would have flew past the DB, but the DB stayed over top, and it ends up being a first down, which was rare for the Giants offense.
And a good example of what you were referring to earlier, where after early failures with the offensive line, now they're giving Josh Zudu the help he needs.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
84 and 85 are both the and you have
running three guys blocking one guy. This is not a good situation for any offense. And yet this is their best offensive gain of the day. They're wasting 3 blockers and they still get 12 yards. It's the best we got.
That's the allocation of resources the Giants are afforded right now. All right. So here, then these are plays that the Giants started using in the second quarter. This is early in the second quarter. It's a 2nd and 9, ends up being a completion to Malik Nabers. Just watch the outside players. They both just stand on the line of scrimmage. We've seen this from Daboll in the past. That's not necessarily new, but this is just a way to try to create space against zone coverage. That's what they're doing. They want Kenyon Mitchell and the other outside cornerback, I'm guessing is Darius Slay at the top of the screen, to stay tight so these number 2 receivers can just run hooks. And Malik Nabers does that. And you can see how the curl flat, which I think is I don't know who that is. It looks like a linebacker or a defensive end, ends up running towards Devin Singletary, and Nabers just sits right in place, makes the catch. This is what the Giants offense has to do to create space against zone coverage, because you don't have layered throws. You don't have touch over the middle of the field. So you're just trying to use bodies to occupy and then just have defenders expand and then have your number 2 receiver just replace them in the expansion. It's not great, man, because this is like the only time the Giants were able to like move the football with plays like this, it seemed like.
And I'm asking, and I think this is a good example, Nick, of what I referred to earlier in this podcast. Do you have the end zone angle or no? If not, we can just roll back to that angle. It's fine. When I mentioned that, I feel like when I watch Daniel Jones versus other quarterbacks, he's really slow at getting into his drop and then getting the ball released after getting out of his drop. I think this is a good example of that. I mean, to be quite frank, if you're just running quick game as an offense and that's all you can rely on and you run it so often that you should be much more crisp with it, this ball's got to be out earlier, dude. There's got to be some level of anticipation. You don't need to watch him come out of his route and then make that throw and make that turn. And then the ball doesn't need to be that high that he has to leave his feet to jump and catch it. Like, this needs to be more crisp altogether. And I just don't think he needs to take the drops that sometimes he takes. Like,
he hitches into this. This isn't necessarily like just a drop. Like, he hitches into this too. Like, he hits his back foot. Yeah. Hits the back foot, hitch.
I don't think he needs 2-3 steps, though, to get to that back foot. That's kind of my point. You're running quick game. Like, just catch the snap here, set yourself up, and get the fucking football out before he gets into it.
Some of that is tied into this route, too. And again, I think it can get a little confusing when it comes to this offense, because a lot of these routes are predicated on what the defense is going to do. And here, this was just a curl because the curl flat expanded. So
balls just takes so long to get out. To me, it's just my opinion of it. I just feel like on this concept, you just got to catch the
football should be coming out at this point because the defender is already cleared. You have 2 defenders gaining depth. Absolutely. Yes, you're right here.
You got to throw with some level of anticipation. And then even once
tick slow,
it's a tick slow, but and that's true. But can he afford to be a tick slow when the ball takes that long to get there? That's the question. For Justin Herbert, you can be a tick slow because you have velocity and you're driving a football and the receiver doesn't have to leave his feet to catch a curl like Nabers just had to do. But with Jones, that's not the case. He doesn't have that level of arm talent. You got to be a tick faster with your anticipation when you have arm talent like Jones has.
100%. Here's another failed shot attempt because of the offensive line. That's not making excuses for Daniel Jones. It's just the truth. The Giants are going to try to do a play action. You're going to see Nabers run up the field, and then he's just going to dart towards the sideline. That's an attempted shot attempt, but at this time,
and this is a great example, Nick, of what you've said for 2 weeks now, how the Giants could become predictable when they're under center, that they're tipping off the defense that they're taking shot plays. So you could see the defense knew this was going to be not a run play, but a play action shot play. They run blitz, and they just absolutely destroy the Giants on this one.
And dude, this is, again, John Michael Schmitz against Nakobe Dean. This isn't at the second level, but
he shouldn't be missing this block. This is a bad miss.
So terribly, dude. So terribly. First off, he's not in great position, right? Maybe he expected Greg Van Roten to be there. That's my one caveat, is maybe he thought Greg Van Roten wasn't going to follow the other player who was expanding towards Jermaine Illuminor, because there was not a defender there to be blocked for Jermaine Illuminor after the pass off. But even so, man, this is like, you got to block this linebacker, man. Like, you're not bringing your feet along. You're just attacking with your arms. And then by that point,
right,
Dean gets right, and Jones gets freaking killed. We're lucky Jones didn't get hurt on this play, man.
Yeah, this could have been a really bad injury for Jones. He gets sandwiched in between two defenders here.
And then
but you're right. Like, it's such a clean win for Nakobe Dean. That shouldn't, if anything, like, make it hard on him, JMS.
Exactly. And then you have all the attention. Look, the Giants' offensive line might not be good enough to hold up one-on-one.
76 gets himself into, Nick. Oh, that looked bad.
It was a great move by the one technique.
But,
that was a beautiful move. It's
a beautiful move, but my God, the feet look so bad on that one.
And then look at Azudu. Two tight ends.
Getting 3 players to help him out over there. You can't run an offense like this. My God.
That's my point, man. Like, Azudu does like the quarterback's not good, but Azudu really helped the Giants
back. I know. And that's the problem, because we're stuck with him rest of the year, dude.
I know. And look at Nabers. Like, look at this route by Nabers. You can't really see it because it goes off the screen. But Nabers gets to the top of the numbers and just explodes outward. He's gone, dude. Like, look there. He is gone.
We're wasting that. We're wasting that because we can't get the ball out there to that.
If the Giants had just a little bit of time here, like if Jones was able
to, that's the other thing.
It's not Jones's fault.
This is not Jones's fault. And I agree with you, but I can't sit here and say definitively, if Jones had time on this, he would have hit Nabers for a touchdown. Because Jones is 5 of 26 on deep throws this year, and he's missed perfectly clean pocket deep balls to Nabers. The Cleveland route, where it was the slot for, that was just even more separation than Nabers just had, and he wildly overthrew him on that pass. And there were multiple others. So unfortunately for us, it's a great example of what we talked about before. 2 things can be true at once. The protection ruined that play, and the offensive line was the fault, but we can't know for sure that Jones would have dialed up that pass, because his passing targets down the field have been disgustingly off, almost like worse than NFL backup level off. The throws he tried downfield in this game, the ball placement on them, dude, were disgusting to watch, really.
Oh, yeah. He's terrible at throwing the ball deep. That's been that way for quite a while now. And people like to point to the old PFF number. That was years ago. And again, he threw like 19 deep passes that year.
And all that number said was that they were caught. Like, they didn't say anything to do with ball placement, location. If they maximized yards after the catch, just did the ball get caught. It was a horrific stat that the tape never backed up.
Yep, absolutely. Here we're going to have a 2nd and 11 pistol play action pass. Nabers clear out. Love this play design. 3-by-1. Nabers is going to clear out the dig for Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton comes wide open. Jones moves in the pocket, it doesn't reset, and then throws it behind Slayton, forcing Slayton to stop, and it's not caught. And you can even see right here, Nabers is pointing. He's calling the shot. Darius Slayton is wide open. Get him the football. And they don't complete it. And it's just like, yo, what the F is going on with this team, man? Come on, guys. What are we doing here?
This was the best play call of the day by the Giants, for sure. My favorite route combination. I think you did a great job breaking down. I actually think, kudos to you, you did a Twitter breakdown of this, Nick, that I was hoping would be here instead, because you did the zoom in to Nabers pointing to Darius Slayton. That's like, here you go, Jones. This is what you got to throw to. I'll say this, like, roll it back to the end zone angle you have of this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it just had the end zone before this, right? Yeah. Pause. I don't personally think this pocket needs to even be bailed out of. I think good quarterbacks, I just watched Drake May do it, can just shuffle, reset to that point, and then find Slayton. Like, the fact that he forces himself to roll to his left, like, take a hop, step, shuffle left right here into that open void you have right there. Stop. You could have just shuffled into that, reset your feet, squared your shoulders, and delivered this throw on target. Because the problem is, even if you don't agree that he can reset this pocket, he doesn't have a secondary option, because when he's forced to move to his left like this, he loses all ability to throw the ball on target. Daniel Jones is a terrible off-platform throw. Just because we saw him do it once to Hodgins in the playoffs against Minnesota doesn't mean that he can do it. It means that he's done it sparingly in his 6-year career. But he is a horrible quarterback when he's forced to move to his left specifically and then throw a football. He has no ability to change his arm slot and trajectory based on that. He has no real natural arm talent. His only arm talent comes from when he's able to square his shoulders, square his body, hitch into throws, and throw those dig routes. The only time I've ever seen any real arm talent from Jones has been on those dig routes, and every single time he had his body squared and his shoulders squared. He's taught by David Cutcliffe, whatever it is, but he doesn't change his arm slot. Like, this is a horrific throw. Throw. This is almost something that you should watch on tape as any coach and be like, I can't play this guy if he can't make this throw on target.
And it's on a line, dude. He doesn't reset his feet. He's not that type of quarterback, man. Like, he does not pace his balls well at all. He just throws it directly through the outside portion of Darius Slayton. I don't know if he thought Darius Slayton was going to sit or what exactly was the reason why, but like, just look at the end zone angle on YouTube right now. There's no defender anywhere near him, dude. He's wide open, and you're telling me you can't complete this pass. It's so damn depressing. And that sets up the next play, which is a 3rd and 11. And this is where the Giants are like, look, we need to pick apart the zone. That's what we need to do. We need to pick apart the zone coverage. And here's the first of the spacing concepts that I was referring to earlier. You're going to see everybody sit. Theo Johnson's a little bit late to get out. So Jones is looking at Darius Slayton, but he's scared because Cooper DeJean is chilling right on the numbers, and Slayton is just getting out of his break, and he doesn't want to fire this football, so he hitches up, and then as he goes to throw, he ends up getting sacked from behind. And a lot of that is because Theo Johnson never dragged Cooper DeJean away from Darius Slayton. But the same, it's 3rd and 11. Like, why is Cooper DeJean going to leave the receiver who's right behind him to pick up some tight end who's not nearly as athletic as a lot of people think? And all he has to do is make a tackle in open space.
He does look pretty slow on these, man. Looking at Theo Johnson, it's rough.
He
didn't look like that at Penn State, though. It's really weird.
He has been bad for the Giants offense. Now, could that change? Absolutely. I still think he's an asset as a blocker, but I think Daniel Bellinger is an asset as a blocker. I know Chris Manhertz is an asset as a blocker. They're trying to have him come into his own. I think he's a little bit late out here. And maybe if he was a little bit quicker out, because once that player goes inside, he sits there, he waits, and then he gets out. You can see Jones, you can say fire the football. And I get that, but I also understand that there are 2 defenders about to collapse on top of Darius Slayton here. So they wanted to run the spacing concept, right? It failed. A sack. So the next play or the next drive, when they get the football back about 4 minutes later, it's a 1st and 10. This is the start of the next drive. They run the same exact concept from a more condensed look. They use Wan'Dale Robinson, run him into motion, almost said into the ocean. They run him as a motion player and then just run sticks. Nobody goes with Wan'Dale Robinson whatsoever. You have 3 guys on Darius Slayton and Malik Nabers to the play side. And Jones never adjusts, steps up, and ends up getting sacked. And it's like, you have to know at that point when 27 turns his back and then nobody picks up Wan'Dale Robinson on a 1st and 10, Dan.
Looks like he's looking at 27 too. That's the weirdest part.
He just doesn't pull the trigger. And I don't know why.
Fast enough. This is the definition of a sack that's not on the offensive line. When those stats come out and they're like, he got sacked 8 times. How could you ever blame him? These are the definition of the plays where it's like, no. The quarterback's got to get that ball out to Wan'Dale, and he's got to get it out fast.
And I love how Malik Nabers faked Dean out so bad that Dean thought that he was running a dig route, and he just ends up sitting. And you can see Dean just carry nobody to the middle of the field, and that safety is dialed into Malik Nabers. Everybody's dialed into Malik Nabers, but nobody's really paying too much attention to the check down or to the flat route because they're like, oh, we'll just rally and tackle. And that's basically what happens. And on this play, Jones doesn't even get the football out. If he gets the football to Wan'Dale Robinson here and it's accurate, which is a whole nother issue, Wan'Dale Robinson probably picks up 6, 7, 8, maybe even a 1st down on this
maybe
play.
More. He can create missed tackles and he can, anything's better than a drive-killing sack, which is what Jones takes on here. And anytime you're running quick game, when you're holding the ball this long, it's never going to lead to anything good.
Yeah. I mean, this is 3-step drop, hitch up, got to get rid of the football. And he had Wan'Dale early, but just waited and the math never changed either. Now here we're going to have the touchdown push off by Theo Johnson, which it was a push off, unfortunately, by Theo. Theo goes right in. You can see he just shoves
extend the arm. Once you extend the arm, you're always going to get called.
Yeah, unless you're Mike Evans, you're not getting away with it.
But that's a difference. Mike Evans does it in a little bit more subtle ways, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. And
he again, knows he's mastered the art of the push off. Theo Johnson has not mastered the art of the push off. That's such an obvious. The end zone angle makes it look hilariously obvious.
Yeah, and Theo Johnson hasn't really mastered much right now, and I'm not trying to just kick him. But I can't remember there was a play in this game where I was like, oh, damn it, this is like the exact play I was referring to when it comes to Theo. It's not something that shows up on the stat sheet. It's not something that a lot of people realize, but when you watch the tape, you just see like, oh, you're slow in and out of your you're a step behind almost every single time, and you can't be a step behind in this. You can't have another somewhat even slight liability on this. You can't. It's not a good enough offense. Daniel Jones is not nearly good enough of a quarterback to elevate a player like Theo Johnson at this point.
Nope. You're right about that.
And now we're gonna have a 3rd and 3. Oh, this is a 1st and 10. I'm sorry. And Daniel Jones gets sacked. But look at Malik Nabers. Again, you need more time, but Malik Nabers ends up getting wide open. Another well-designed play where you're going to run the crossing route to get the middle of the field safety to bite down, and then you're going to run a post behind it with Malik Nabers. And you can see how the safety up at the top of the screen is quarter, half. The deep half safety is pointing, hey, quarter, take Malik Nabers, and the quarter is biting down on Wan'Dale Robinson's crossing route.
This is how you beat the over-aggressive defense, but you also need time, and that's not something the Giants offensive line provided on this one.
And this was Jermaine Illuminor who got beat around the edge. And Greg Van Roten ends up getting beat by Jalen Carter. And oh my God,
Jalen Carter's so good.
I know, man. He's dirty. He's a dirty player. Needs a shower. And here's Drew. No, this is Daniel Jones getting sacked on the 3rd and 3. Yeah. Oh no, Drew Lock getting sacked on the 3rd and 3. I apologize. You see how
free blitz there.
Yep.
That's going to be a problem, too, if they go to lock, unfortunately. Jones has done a better job with that this year.
Yeah, the Giants, they slide their protection right. So if you look pre-snap from this angle, you see how there's a defender over there, Nolan Smith. He ends up dropping off, simulate pressure, send the nickel, and Locke ends up fumbling the football. And we got to see Greg Van Roten pick it up on 3rd and 3. The linebacker ends up coming, and nobody's wasted block.
Van Roten was trying to run this thing.
I know.
He had some ideas in his mind.
I appreciate that.
Me too.
And now here's the deep shot by Locke. And this is just a beautiful ball, man. Like, it's a little bit over the outstretched arms, but watch when he throws it. It's to the boundary side.
Early.
He throws it. He's starting to throw it. And 34, the defensive back, is about 2 yards, 3 yards upfield on Jalen Hyatt. So Jalen Hyatt does not have any leverage at all, and to the inside. And Locke put it to the outside and allowed Jalen Hyatt to run underneath it. And these are the types of things that Dan and I refer to when we say arm talent and anticipatory throwing. This is an anticipation throw, and he puts it right in the breadbasket of Jalen Hyatt. And Hyatt seemed to get hurt on the play. I haven't heard anything about that. And he drops the football. It's a good throw, though, dude.
Yeah, this is what Nick was
a little bit on a dart, but
yeah. It is what Nick was referring to, though, when he discussed the liver arm that Drew Lock has than Daniel Jones. And I know a few people have commented us that they were at a lot of the training camp practices, and they said it was blatantly obvious that Drew Lock had more arm talent and a liver arm than Daniel Jones. No matter if anybody wants to deny it or not, I don't really care at this point. But, that's not the only factor. It can't just be a live arm. But I do appreciate the anticipation on that throw that you brought up, Nick. And look, it's reminiscent of, it's such a sad low bar to set, but like it's reminiscent of last year when Tyrod was able to take those quick drops and throw the ball down the field. So, I mean, Jones is just not really done at any kind of, consistent or even anything more than the sparingly level. I like to bring up the word sparingly with Jones because all the things that, he doesn't do well, he does do them sometimes, but they're sparingly, 5 to 10% of it versus the 90 to 95%. That's the other side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very sparse.
Yeah.
Spread apart. It's not there too often, right? Nope. And that's unfortunate because he's been here for 6 years.
But something's going on because he's been back for 6 years. He's a starter again this week. They didn't bring any competition for quarterback 2. They didn't draft anyone in this 10-year. They didn't give Tyrod a chance to actually win the job. They didn't bring Tyrod back despite him putting on better tape than Jones last year. So something odd is going on, man. I think, Sal, I'll shout out Sal, the content creator, the not so content creator or whatever, the not content creator. He's always telling me, man, like, I don't agree with your read on this, Dan. I think they like Jones more than you guys, or than you think they like Jones. And I've always kind of maintained that they've been stuck with Jones. But every day that passes, and I start to think more and more that they maybe they do believe in Jones to some extent.
Could be take lock too. It could be a disagreement. It could be, look, Daboll like, we went to the playoffs. This is an awesome season in 2022. I believe in this guy. Joe Schoen extends him. Joe Schoen ends up believing in him. And now Daboll has buyer's remorse. And he's like, shit, I really don't believe in this guy. This guy cannot run the offense past what was successful in 2022. And when defense is really key in on him, he can't elevate anybody. And now he's like, we need to find somebody else. But Shane's like, I already allocated all this money. Well, we can't do that. We have to ride it out. And it could be like one of those, maybe even internal disagreements between Shane and Daboll. But both of these guys have eyes. Both of these guys know football. So I'm sorry. There's no way that they're sitting here right now saying, yeah, he's still great. Yeah. No, they understand the limitations.
Definitely. I know they know he's not great. What I more so meant by that is, let me clarify this. I don't think there's any possibility they think he's great, but what I think is possible is that they think he's the best option on the team. And that to me is, even at this point, surprising and up for debate because of what I said before. I don't know anything that he does well at the quarterback position. Now, I guess one thing you could say is the ball's out faster than it might be with Locke, and he might not have like a free blitzer like we saw with that Locke play. He's better and he's more well-versed in the offense, like you discussed before. And I think that's probably true, and I think that's probably the deciding factor. He just knows the offense better. He's run it longer. He has better rapport with the players. He has better command of the huddle, better command of the pre-snap, the post-snap with the protections. I think that's the driving factor here. But as far as actually playing the quarterback position, I'm not sold that there's anything he does well at this point, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, it's
I don't even do you even think he's looked good as a run? I'm sorry. I want you to make that point. I just had
no. I was gonna say, it's hard to say that he has done anything well. The Giants have scored 10 points in the last 2 games.
And they're lowest in the league in total, not just last 2 games in scoring points.
Are they the lowest in the league?
99 points.
I thought the Patriots were tied with them.
Patriots might be tied with them. Giants have 99. They haven't hit the 100-point mark, so I thought they were lowest, but they might not be. I thought they were though. But damn it, I wanted to ask you something about not what were we on? We were talking about the things that he does well. Oh yeah. Do you feel like he's been kind of worse as a runner this year and looked a little just less elusive and slower and weirder as a runner?
Yeah, I don't think he was ever very elusive as a runner. I think he's somebody who can build up steam and get going and run maybe a fast like 40, for instance. But I agree with what you're saying and what you're putting out there. There does seem to be a little bit more. I don't know if it's a hesitation thing, if it's
I don't know what it is.
Athletic ability, if he's lost his step, but he doesn't seem as dangerous as a threat when he is running the football. But he still takes those same freaking hits. Usually when you're injured as much as Daniel Jones and you're running the football as often as Daniel Jones is, your ineffectiveness is going to come from the fact that you want to get down, right? You're not going to want to pick up those. No, Daniel Jones still wants to pick up every damn yard he can, but he just looks like he's a step behind. And that could be a product of that injury, the torn ACL last year.
And I'll say one more thing on that front. We've built him, and the fans have built him up as this model citizen who does everything right off the field. Personally, I don't think his reaction to getting benched was the right move by him or like this model citizen move. He acted in the post-game presser, and I'm just making this point. I don't care. I don't feel bad about it anymore. I don't care who it offends. He made the point in the post-game presser about like not calling him coach or Coach Daboll. Daboll, it's Daboll's show. It's Daboll's team. He gets to run it, and I didn't agree with that. Dude, it was 28-3. You deserve to be benched that game and just accept it and be accountable for it. I don't care that much because it's in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But like this great guy that's always right and he's always done the right thing. The right thing would have been to say, I was playing terrible football. I deserve to be benched that day. That's, in my opinion, what the right thing would have been to say. And I didn't like what he said after the Hard Knocks League. He's like, oh, I was so taken aback. I can't believe they did that. I didn't believe it. I didn't see it coming. And, it is what it is. I know how they feel about me now. Dude, you deserve to have skepticism about you. You deserve to be like, I think he thinks more highly of what he's capable of than what the reality is. And it's okay. I'm not going to harp on this too much, but when he's billed to us as like this perfect guy off the field, that to me doesn't add up. Some accountability and some acknowledgement that you are not as good as what you think you are might have gone a long way with some people. I don't know, but it's not important. It's just something that I noticed.
Hey, it's a good observation, my friend. Let's get into some superlatives.
Okay, well, it's an ugly week for superlatives. I am struggling across the board. I start with unheralded player here, Nick. Oh, God, this is a struggle. I have NA. I have NA. I don't think anybody really qualifies this week.
Go to the doc and
Okay, let me see your pick for this.
yeah, see what
Oh, no, you wrote they all suck.
all right. I'm obviously being a bit jocular there, but
They did all suck in this game besides Neighbors.
I'm going to go with one of the tight ends, whichever one to not name Theo Johnson. So either Chris Manhertz or Daniel Bellinger. Tyron Tracy wasn't terrible, but he was hardly used, which was a problem. I'm not blaming Malik Nabers. Obviously, I think Malik Nabers could get the best overall player, but you could scroll down and see what I said for best overall player.
Well, I don't want to look. I always try to scroll past that because I don't want to
just look at what just look.
Okay, I don't like when it influences, but let's see. Oh, you have okay. We have a different take on that then.
Okay,
I'm not like strong about it, but
yeah.
I have.
Well, what's your best overall player?
So yeah, we'll go back to best throw after this. Nick had nope in all caps. I have Neighbors. I thought Neighbors played as well as he could play. Neighbors got open often. He got open early. He looked explosive on the deep routes. It's not his fault.
He also looks done. He looks
that's the problem. He looks so checked out. I know.
Checked out. Not as much as Deontay Banks. Deontay Banks, like
we're gonna get to that on the defensive podcast.
Yeah, we'll get that on the defensive podcast, but Tay Banks quit.
Because I didn't see that play last night when I talked about it, and I regret my take on it because it passed me by in the game. It
happens. It happens to me all the time.
It happens all the time on the broadcast, but like when you're first watch. But now that I've seen it, we have a lot to talk about there. Let's save that for the next podcast. It might even be what we lead the headline with these days as we're trying our best to garner any kind of interest.
But there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like people were debating on Twitter. I'm like, no.
No. It's bad. It's bad. But you're right though. Neighbors, I said this on last night's pod. I felt like he looked checked out during the lock series. But yeah, I mean, he's just over this situation that he's put in. It sucks for him. Like he's, like he said, getting open and winning his routes and doing his job. But unfortunately, and we've said this before, Nick, a wide receiver doing his job doesn't always lead to success. This is Darius Slayton for the last 3 years. I know he makes bad drops, but also has been like top 10 in separation rate, open on tape throughout the last 2 years. Doesn't always get the ball, right? And it's just like wide receiver can only handle so much on his own. He's very much so dependent on the O-line and the quarterback.
But Neighbors acting like that is a problem for everybody. Like the coaching.
It is, and it's annoying, and it's bad for this year.
I get it. I'm not saying that, I don't understand it, but it's not doing anybody any justice. It really is just going to basically be another hole in a ship that's sinking.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't support it. I'm not going to sit here and say I support Neighbors doing that by any means. And while I also understand it, I don't support it. I have, this is it's a flaw in my game as an analyst. I never really put enough attention on these types of things, these off field types, this type of situation. I know for a fact though, like it is interesting because it could be like you said, another hole in the sink that ships Daboll, sinks Daboll and as the head coach maybe. But I also know that like this could get worse if they don't figure out a solution at quarterback at some point soon. And who knows where the F that's going to come from at this point, right?
And it could be Tommy, dude. It could be Tommy DeVito too. Like they could like turn to Lock and then Lock suck, and then they just go to DeVito because of the Jones contract situation, and because they actually had success with DeVito. And I know DeVito is limited, and DeVito sucked against Philadelphia, and he got benched for Tyra. I understand all of those things, but they won 3 games with DeVito to play us out of selecting Drake May. They had like Brian Daboll has raved about Tommy DeVito. Every coach, Shea Tierney, raves about Tommy DeVito's note-taking ability and how Tommy DeVito prepares for the game, even though he doesn't start these games, even though he's not even dressed. He's the emergency third quarterback in these games. And I'm not saying that's going to make him a good starting quarterback, but how many times can you roll Daniel Jones out there? And if Drew Lock doesn't know the offense that well, and if Drew Lock does end up sucking, they may turn to him. He's on the roster for a reason.
Oh, I think we're going. If I had to predict right now, we're going to see both Lock and DeVito this year. And Tommy DeVito had an 8 touchdown to 3 interception ratio last year as a Giants starter. That is probably the best kid. What'd you say?
A rookie undrafted kid
working with the shit O-line that every other Giants quarterback got last year, and working with no Neighbors. With that said, I'm not sure that. I guess in 2022, Jones had a better touchdown interception ratio. That was the only time in the last 5 years a quarterback has had a better touchdown interception ratio than Tommy DeVito. I think since Jones has come back from his injury, Nick, in 20 or since the end, not even before that, since 2022, he has the same amount of passing touchdowns as Tommy DeVito and a lot more starts. At some point, you ask yourself, if Jones is the best guy, the supposed clear-cut best guy, why does it never show up on the scoreboard? That's what I asked yesterday, and that's, I think, the best way to describe it. it, man. It's really as cut and dry as that. Why don't we ever see it on the scoreboard if it's supposedly the case? At some point, you just shake your head at this, but I won't, let's say, intrigued. I'm not intrigued by anything that's remaining left in this Giants season, if I'm going to be honest, but besides the development of our young players. But I am thinking that Tommy DeVito is going to be somebody we're going to watch at some point again. And hopefully for him, he can, figure it out. But in the end, he did regress a lot, Nick. I think he ended the season with like the 43rd best clean pocket EPA. Jones was 42nd and Tyrod Taylor was 8th best. Again, I bring this stat up a lot because I want to hammer home how wrong people are who thought that Tyrod was worse than Jones on tape last year or at all last year. Because it's very important to me to hammer that home because it's very annoying, that take. It's very wrong and it's very annoying, and I'm sick of hearing it and reading it. So I just have to keep hammering it home, Nick. But best throw on tape. Can we find one? We didn't find one last week. In my opinion, we pointed to 2 throws that were like 3 air yards, but did we find any this week?
I went with the Drew Lock's incomplete pass that was a little bit overthrown to Jalen Hyatt. It wasn't even that great of a throw, but it just fired off of his hand, and it gave Hyatt an opportunity to catch. I still think it was thrown way too much on a dart. Should have had a little bit more touch over the top, allowed Hyatt to run underneath it, but he threw with anticipation. We showed that right here just a few minutes ago, so I have to go with that. What other one would it be? The Darius Slayton comeback route or the Malik Nabers deep curl? Like, come on.
The first play of the game, that Malik Nabers that we were talking about, that
no, the deep curl that he caught in the second quarter. But yeah, there was that one too. Malik Nabers didn't have a catch in the second half, man. Like, come on, how are we not figuring that out? And I get that the Giants came out of halftime like, yo, we can actually run the football too. Let's try that. and they did, and it wasn't all that successful, of course.
We've gone 8 straight quarters without figuring out one good throw that Daniel Jones has made on tape. Just got to think about that. And that's, I think, maybe even the clearer point as to like, why are we being sold? Are we sure about this bill of goods that we're being sold that he's definitely the best option when he goes 8 straight quarters without putting a single good throw on tape? And, if you don't agree with that, do me a favor and do your work. Come back to me with actual work. Don't whine and cry like you usually do, whoever you are. Do your work and find me a throw on tape that was a good throw by Daniel Jones.
All right. What else we got? We have player we expected to see more from. Now I'm going to leave Jones out. Jones usually gets this.
We're done with expecting more out of him.
Yeah,
anyway.
Exactly.
JMS.
Yeah.
Oh, you have JMS. Yeah. It's just the problem with me for JMS. Like, I thought Van Roten had a bad game. Illuminor, it wasn't as good. But JMS is a guy that I am expecting to see more from because we invested this top 60 pick in him. And it's not a normal top 60 pick. When you go top 60 IOL, your expectations are way higher than top 60 tackle to me. When you go that, what was he, the second IOL off the board in that class? Or was the Bills take the guard? Did the Bills take that guard from Florida before him? I don't know.
Osiris Torrance. I think Osiris Torrance might have went. But either way, yeah.
Yeah, I think Osiris Torrance was after because the Bills had more wins. But yeah, so he would be the guy for me. Let's do pass blocking grade 1 through 10.
It's JMS for me too. Pass blocking grade 2.6.
Yeah, I had, let's see, I had 2.2. Okay, run blocking grade
2.9. And then I said, what's that? Because we didn't run block that often.
Because they don't even block. We don't run the ball at 2.7 for me. It was bad all around. The blocking was horrible in this game and a big factor in why they failed. It wasn't all on Jones, as we've made clear. That's it for today. This was another kind of therapy session, almost, it feels like, Nick. Try to laugh through the pain. I don't know, man. It's frustrating that we're only, like you said yesterday, at October 20th, week 7, and we're at this point. There's a lot more to watch. I don't know, man. We'll see what happens with this team.
Yeah, we'll see. It was a rough one, Dan, but on to the defense.
Yes. Have a great rest of your week. Please, I forgot to ask, support the show by liking and subscribing.